Please note, competitive flooring products with different product constructions and attributes are also installed in both manufactured homes and RVs. The techniques and recommended Congoleum repair products that we will demonstrate may not be suitable and are not recommended for use in repairing competitive products.
The next thing we'd like to talk about is if you had significant damage on the deck and needed to replace what we might call a short board replacement. You can see the length of the board it varies with each product. And we've learned that instead of trying to take out an entire board, let's say for an example you had significant damage in this area right here that was a bit above and beyond a bond and seal repair, something like that. You can put a section in. With this procedure, you don't necessarily need to have a corresponding piece. You just need to have one that's the same width. As you can see with this particular pattern here, we have variable widths. All I needed to do was get a piece of material that had the actual width of this board. But there's two things that have to happen. I need to establish an end and come to the party with a piece that has an end on it. And to determine where that's at, one of the easiest ways is to make yourself a little road map here. You want to put identification on this end and down here. And the objective here is to leave an end. If we did not leave the end, it wouldn't appear like it had an end board. It would just go into the next pattern and wouldn't look near as good as if you provide an end for it. And the way to determine where that is at is you put the tape there and then draw a line adjacent to the end board and mark this so you know where to stop. Maybe that's a road map, if you will. And for direction, if you want, you can put an arrow on here to know that you're going to cut on that side of the line, just to help you remember that that's what you're going to do. And then you're going to determine whatever length you thought you could get away with. A length that would be appropriate, but yet offer an optical illusion rather than doing the whole board. That's why we call it a short board. So you'll line this up, and then you're going to frame this out with a little bit of tape. And we're going to do the repair with a double-faced tape that we've invented that's very aggressive, it's very user-friendly. And then as we go to cut this, again, we're going to apply enough pressure to get through both wear layers. And here's where having a little bit of reference with the tape that we have down here, by being able to see this, you have a point of reference to see where you want to cut it at. So we'll apply enough pressure to cut through both wear layers. And then I like to come down and do this end, so I've established both ends. This one you can see, so the objective would be to cut on this side of the line, so you would establish an end down here. So this one's easy enough to see. You just make sure you cut leaving an end. And then you're going to cut your lengths here. If I was on the deck instead of on a tabletop, I would put my knee section, a knee on the end of the framing square to hold it in position. Or I could ask for Kevin to help me hold this end. Again, with enough pressure, we'll cut through these. Then we'll remove the pieces, discard the waste, and we'll prep the area with the double-faced tape. You could actually look at it first to see if it meets your expectation, because you could do it again if necessary. A nice, clever way to insert this tape under here instead of trying to get it off your fingers is to attach it to your blade. And you just want to stagger the ends, cut your length, attach it to the blade, and this makes it a little easier to maneuver it. So you can get it under here in position and then lay it off. Same thing on the ends. You don't want to put a lot of tape under there because it's difficult to get the carrier off, so I wouldn't make it that long. I would shorten that just a little bit, like so. The one thing you don't want to do is overlay it like that. You want to have a gap. And in this case, I could either shorten this a little bit or even put a new piece in. But there's something that we also like to show that this tape can be useful for, is to actually take a couple pieces of this tape and clean your area. Let's say there's debris on the floor. It'll improve your bond if you actually take a small section of the tape, and you can actually see that I've lifted debris off the decking, so that actually improves your bond. We've learned that if someone has done this type of a repair and used adhesive, it doesn't hold up well. In fact, we've been told many times that a lot of plants won't do this with adhesive because it does fail. So we've learned that by using this taped method, we've never had a failure yet. And we've been using the tape for about 6 years. So you'll stagger this again like so. Same thing on this end. Position the tape. And now you want to roll it in place, but it's easier, instead of having an uneven section to roll it, it's better if you go ahead and lay your repair section in, and then you can apply adequate pressure to lock the tape down on your subfloor. And this is done much better by using a steel professional seam roller than something that you'd use on the wall that's plastic. So you need that professional weight to really push that down. This is just a professional steel seam roller. And then you're going to remove the carriers. I simply use the blade to remove the carrier. You come in at an angle, and if you walk these out at a slight angle, you'll find that you can get the carrier off much easier. And when you get to the corner, you don't rapidly want to remove it. You just kind of want to walk it out at a low angle. That way you don't roll tape up underneath the corners. The carrier is pretty aggressive. It's not going to come up in a lot of different pieces. That's a nice, useful feature of this tape. And then you've pretty much prepped your area. You're going to want to push the material towards your opening. Incidentally, this can also be done if the product was fully adhered. You'd simply prep this area, remove the flooring and keep it nice and clean here, and then just put tape alongside to put it back in. In this case, this floor was perimeter fastened, so we were able to get the tape underneath, but either way it works fine. You have instant grab. The one feature that folks like about this is there's no adhesive contamination. If we did this with adhesive, you would have adhesive coming up, could lead to contamination, and the adhesive could discolor with ultraviolet lighting. But you have instant grab. You lock this down, you have instant grab. You can see I'm pulling the deck. So you insert your corners, net your seams together, then come back and adequately roll it in position. And then the seam sealer that we mentioned earlier is going to be applied. Now, we didn't take the time to draw a picture, so I'm going to do that now. What's going to happen is you need to insert this fin, and this is more of a side view, where you have the wear layer, the print, the gel coat, and the backing, basically 4 layers of construction. And this applicator is made like a T-section, where you're going to momentarily open this up with that T-section and put it down in the vinyl, and then it creates chemical fusion to give you a better bond than just putting it on the top. But we provide a nice useful tip. Before we actually go to insert this, we take this clean out pin. You're incidentally going to shake this up well because there's a flattening agent in it. So you shake this up before use. You pour it into your applicator, and this can be used many times again. Just pour it back into the glass bottle to retain it for multiple uses. And you take the clean out pin here and just pinch this fin shut. This just makes it a little easier to insert the fin. This is not a mandatory procedure, but it's a useful tip that we offer. And then we tip the wings up. And then your objective is, as this picture, is to put the fin down in. You want to retain this clean out pin. I'm just going to set it over here so I can remember where it's at. And I'm going to put the seam sealer fin down in the vinyl and put a nice clean bead on here. If this was the diamond floor product where we showed you earlier that you're not going to wipe that off, you're just going to put a nice clean bead on here. And if it's the urethane built-in stain defense system wear layer that we're working on here now, it's not near as important because you're simply going to pull the bead off. But it's important that you take the time to insert that fin. And if you're doing this with the diamond floor, you want to make sure you get a nice clean bead. We do suggest that they let it set. If it was the diamond floor, you would be done. You'd put a nice clean bead on here. But with this particular wear layer, we also want it to set, and it would actually help swell the material shut if you had any slight gaps. But oftentimes when Kevin and I work in the plants, they don't have a lot of time, and you could go ahead and wipe this off of the product that has the urethane stain defense system. You wouldn't do that if it was a diamond floor. And that's pretty much the best way to do a small section, which what we call a short board repair method.